start with a picture of the view from my office, in case you're wondering why after all these years I'm still just a professor. If you have that view, it sort of is career limiting. And so I need to continue then by paying tribute to eLearning Africa. In 2006 in Addis Ababa, who of you here were actually at Addis Ababa in 2006? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 10 of us, right. Tony, I know, was there, Maggie, in 2006 at eLearning Africa, 2 ladies approached me. And they said to me, they were from Namibia and they wanted to do doctorates with me. And I said, well, why should you be happy? Come and do your doctorates with me. What do you want to do it on? One said she wanted to do it on how to get lecturers at the University of Namibia to start working on e-learning. The other one said she wanted to do it on how to get teachers in Windhoek to start, in areas outside Windhoek, Ashikali area, I think, how to get teachers to be interested in doing ICT. And I said to both of them, there's no way on this green earth that I will supervise dumb PhDs like that. And they said, why not? I said, because your PhD will be mildly interesting to a few people at the University of Namibia and mildly interesting to a few people in Ashikaga. Go away and come to me with a problem that will be really interesting for the rest of the world. And so they went away for a year and then they came back and they said to me, we've been thinking. And the one said, you know what I've discovered? If I want the thing to be sorted out at the University of Namibia, then what I really have to look at is what are champions and what do champions do and why do they do what they do? And I said, now that is a very, very exciting project because the whole world wants to know what are champions and what do they do, because most e-learning interventions fall apart once the champion has left the building. And so how can we take what the champion does and build it into the system? And the other one said, actually what she's interested in is, what is the state of e-readiness in Namibia? What do teachers do? And I said, now that is very interesting. We know, what do teachers do and why do they do it? And last year, both of them graduated. And both of them are here today, Maggie Bierkes and Elizabeth Sigoro over there. So this is such fun. And all that thanks to eLearning Africa 2006. So that's just a little bit of garbage that I had to get off my chest first. So this is the second time I'm doing a keynote for eLearning Africa. Maybe I'll never come back. So I'm going to talk about some stuff. Yesterday, Professor Mitra did, well, he's been doing all sorts of really cool things. And I thought, I'm an academic too, so I need to sort of go underneath the stuff rather than doing this is what we have, etc. Let's have a look at the sort of theories underneath that. So I'm going to look at communities of practice, the few that you can see what I'm going to look at. And then I'm going to apply those to those other things, and then I'm going to do the last thing on the bullets. So that's what I'm going to do. And what we have to understand is that Professor Mitra's kids who suddenly just take to computers like ducks on water, it's not just the kids, it's the community. When we talk about making computers work in the world, it's not about the individual, it's about the community. When computers take off, it's not about the individual, it's about the community. And so that's what a community is. And you see there the words concern, passion, and interaction when they do it. And those are the things that we need to look at and we need to promote when we're working it. And a community has these 3 things, a domain, a community, and a practice. And so us sitting here are a community of practice because we have a domain, which is computers and education. We are a community. We meet at eLearning Africa year after year after year, and we have a practice, which is that of e-learning. So that makes us a community of practice. And by the way, I got us some homework. I tweeted a few seconds ago the link to a paper, not a paper, an e-version of this presentation. Just a document, a Google Doc, a shared doc. If you click on the link to that, you'll get to the shared doc, and you have permission to write on that. And so I'm hoping that those of you who can get online in this room will get online and just contribute to the document. It could be rather fun. Then we need to ask, why do people actually take to innovation? And those are the 3 reasons that Rogers gives, why people would actually do things. But then what happened is Betty Collis, whom all of you should know, from the University of Twente in Enschede, the Netherlands, and Carla Verwijs, did a thing that says, what predicts whether people will actually take up and embrace technology? What are the things? But they said it in bullets. So Cronje, that's me, thought it's more useful if we make them questions, because we are educators, we like questions. Somehow or another, that's all we ever do, is we ask questions. So the first question is, will it be accepted? Is it useful? Does it fit in with people's work needs? And does it add value to the learning content? The next one is it usable? Can they do the interface? This is where Professor Mitra is so strong on. Is the interface easy to use and is it easy to learn? And then the last thing is, does it make work easier? Does it fit in with the work environment? Or do you have to go to some locked computer lab where you have to book your name and then the internet isn't working anyway? Does it fit in with your regular working procedures? And do you have time and are you prepared to make time to use it because ultimately you know that it saves time for you? And if the answer to all that is yes, then it's a no-brainer. People will adopt your technology. So that's about technology. So I'm going to talk to you about my philosophy and how I've been doing computers in education. I started in computers in education when I started to do a master's degree with Professor Renate Lippert in 2002. And then I've been doing it ever since. And I've made a point in all that time of never using anything that costs money. It's just been a studious thing that I believe, that education is something that should not cost money. Because this whole idea of developing return on investment for education, that is a no-brainer. What parent in his right mind says, I've got these kids, so I'm going to look for return on investment? It's not true. We do it because that's what we do. Okay, so therefore, I have studiously been doing things that are free only. And what I find interesting is now we start giving them names like MOOCs and flipped classrooms and all sorts of things. Let me take you to my very first free and open courseware. Please look at the date, 1997. That predates Blackboard, WebCT, all those sort of things. I thought, instead of students having to drive into the University of Pretoria to learn about the internet, why can't they stay home and surf in? Nowadays people call that a flipped classroom. In my day we just called it homework. And so I built this thing, and you'll see that it is still under construction because the students were building it. At that stage, the big thing was constructivism. If you clicked on the roster on the one side there, you would get my timetable. If you clicked on the board itself, you'd get all your notes, and you clicked on the task, and can you see what it is? It's a typical schoolroom with a board on one side and two pin boards on the sides. One where the teacher pins her stuff, the other side where she pins the kids' stuff. Then there was the Old Boys Association, or the Old Students Association, which is the C there. There's the teacher's desk in the middle, where they clicked and they could email me. And on the other side was the resource cabinet, in which I put all the links to anything that they might need to use the tasks that they had to do. Their tasks was to fill their desks. So I gave them two desks that looked like, I gave each one desk that looked the way the ones at the very bottom looked, and then they had to interpret their own desks. So you'll see Ari Naidu has his feet on his desk. You'll see Karen Lazenby is sitting working at her desk, and Johan Viljoen is the king of his desk. And so they just had to choose that. This is just a slight snapshot of what we did. That classroom was built in HTML2 because that's the only thing I knew, and the students would put things in, and they had to develop a coding system, a convention of this making names, because if they called then file index, it would overwrite my file called index, and there wouldn't be a classroom anymore. So it was KL index for Karen Lazenby, AN index, so they had to use their first student. Okay, I don't have to give you that much detail. What I'm trying to say is this thing was built, it was on the internet, it was freely available to anybody ever. Why? Because I had no idea how to set up a username and password. And also because I saw no reason to do so, because I was linking to everybody else's free stuff. Why should I put mine behind doors? The problem there was we had no interactive tools. So we just used email. Now this Gmail came much later, but I'm wanting to talk to you about free stuff and how they work. Email is still probably the best way to reach large groups of populations, and it's the simplest way. You want to start an online classroom, you get 20 students, you type their names in there, you teach them only one function called reply to all. And if every student sends reply to all, there you have a virtual community. Isn't life amazingly simple? Then I thought I'd start a blog, because people are interested in what you do. Turns out people are deeply uninterested in what you do. So there was my blog, it's unless you really activate your blog and you invite people to your blog and you really work hard on your blog, nothing happens with the blog. So don't think if you build it, they will come. What I also tried is to give students marks for participating in a blog. The more you put on the blog, what happens? They put rubbish on the blog. And so now just give me some marks because I put it on the blog. It doesn't work that way. So blogs have a very particular need. It's there for content that needs to be updated all the time. So a blog usually runs next to something more substantial. When I found a blog really useful is when students had to book time to see me or something. Then I would put, this is just because I was so dumb in those days, I just put up a blog and say 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or whatever the times they wanted to see me, and they had to post a follow-up onto the blog saying, this is me, this is me, this is me, and there was the timetable, done. So there were some easy ways that one could do some things. Then came this amazing thing called Facebook, which has been, it is, in educational terms, Facebook is the cafeteria of your university. And some lecturers, you will know, actually like hanging out with their students in the cafeteria because much more work happens in the cafeteria than in the studio of the classroom. And we had a group of students who discovered when the professor gives them work, they need to discuss this afterwards. So what better place to discuss it than Facebook? And the professor discovered there was this group and they said, well, do you mind if we just joined it as well? And they said, no, sure, join it. And so one day there were riots on campus, students couldn't get to class, and the professor said, well, don't worry, go home, we'll just conduct a class on Facebook. The purpose of the class was you're going to write a paragraph and your friends are going to crit it. So instead of coming to class and crit it, post it as your regular Facebook, as a post on our page, and we'll do the crits. This is on the 2nd of September 2 years ago. It was absolutely amazing what happened there. One of the students said, I'm so happy that we could do this because I had the flu, I'm in bed, and I wouldn't have been able to attend class, now class has come to me. Another student put up her stuff and she said, this is what I want to design, this is an architecture class, this is what I want to design. Another student said, yes, it's by that architect, and I'm actually in East London attending a conference where that architect is actually speaking. Are there any questions you'd like me to put to him? And they sent him some questions and he posted them back. And he said to them, by the way, the architect says there are many other works of his that you need to look at. Here they are, but more importantly, these were his references based on which he did what he did. And so the richness of this whole cascade of information that happened, and it costs nothing. Then I did a Yahoo group with my students. It worked brilliantly because there was very slow, very little infrastructure, and Yahoo Groups allows you to do emails, but it also allows you to put up, to share documents, etc., etc., etc. Worked incredibly well with Yahoo Groups. So I thought, why don't I use it with the staff in my faculty? Because in my spare time, I'm the dean of a faculty. And so I was thinking, maybe I can sort of get the staff to have a Yahoo Group and have some discussion. Nothing happened. So at some stage, I called them in and I said, let's just get ourselves registered on this Yahoo group. Turns out some of the staff, one guy typed in his username, this is the head department, types in his username, I say, and your password, he puts in a password, and he enters. He says, now? I said, well, now log in using the username and password. He says, what password? I said, the one you just typed in. He says, I can't remember what it was. So, if you're dealing with idiots, it's not going to work. Then I thought, but what about these, what do you call them, wiki spaces, shared spaces. WebPaint was free and easy at that stage, and I thought this is a really good exercise for my heads of department, so I taught them how to log in, name, password, etc., etc., and I said, okay, all I want to know is what does your course cost at various other universities so that we can calibrate this stuff. So log in and just put in what your course costs. Can you see there? Absolutely nothing happened. They didn't fill it in. Turns out the reason for that is they give that sort of work to their secretaries. No head of department will find out what his courses cost and calibrate it. He'll tell his secretary, find out what it costs and tell the dean. So I taught the wrong people the wrong stuff. It's that thing that Collis and Verwey say, does it fit in with their regular work practices? No, it doesn't. If I taught the secretaries, which we then did, we then taught the secretaries how to work with WebPaint, and they found it makes their work much easier because they can just put it in once, so they don't have to do it again and again, and then it took off. So LinkedIn, everybody talks about. This is really the most amazing way. We were talking recently about the careers. So we make students computer literate, they can do all sorts of stuff, and then they stay right where they are. They become waiters somewhere. And that was very sad when Professor Mitra yesterday told us about this young boy who could fix everybody's computers and was now a waiter. And I thought, if this boy just knew about LinkedIn, he could have said, hey, I can fix up people's computers, and I can do so over the internet from a hole in the wall somewhere in India, because that's what usually happens. India fixes everybody's computers anyway, so this guy could have done it there. And all he just needed was something like LinkedIn. It's just such a good piece of software, because you see, the other thing we have to remember is, who are we teaching? We are teaching only one person, and that person is between these two ears. And we think we're teaching other people. No, I'm teaching myself about how to be a more efficient educator. And in my class are lots of other people, and they are there teaching themselves about how to be a more efficient person. It's called heutagogy. This is a new word you have to learn, called heutagogy. Autodidactics. We know about pedagogy, we know about andragogy. The most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, is how to teach yourself. That's the only thing you have to teach somebody. In grade 1, teach them how to teach themselves. You remember that story about teach a man, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach him to fish and you feed him forever? Teach him to use the net and he won't bother you forever. This guy I'm not even going to talk about. The way in which Twitter is able to enthuse, to get people going. Somebody was saying, was it yesterday that you said, who taught you to do Twitter? And everybody said, Maggie. So it's the way to create communities around you, it's the way to create buzz. And I think this is the important thing that we need to understand. People learn because of buzz. Hype, that's what we need to do. There's a beautiful Afrikaans word, it's called lus. Now lus sounds very close to the English word lust. And that's because it is very close to the English word lust. And that's what the job of an educator is. It's to make people lust after learning. And if we can just do that, we're home and dry. Twitter is probably one of the best lust-creating things that there is. And so I need to talk about MOOCs. Massive online open courses. Those are the two that I did. The really cool thing about a MOOC is that 120,000 people go onto the thing, 10% finish, and you think, gosh, but that is a huge waste until you realize that means 12,000 people actually finish. So it has that sort of thing to it. I have a couple of concerns about MOOCs. My most important concern particularly about the red one that I attended, was that it's actually one big aggregator. So somebody else surfed the web on my behalf and put it into some sort of sequence and said, on Monday you're going to do this, this week we're going to look at these guys' websites, and the Horizon report and the Africa report, and now next time we'll do the eLearning Africa report as well, eLearning Africa report as well, and the UNESCO report on this, and read all these things, and so-and-so's online textbook and so on. And then we'll get one person to lead some sort of discussion about it, and then tomorrow we'll do it again and so on and so on. Now there's some things we need to be deeply concerned about. One is that it's the big proponents of these MOOCs and open courseware and things are Harvard and Yale and those sort of universities who are really known for their research. And why are they so good at research? Because they are so particularly bad at teaching. Because as you know, if you are a really bad teacher, what happens? Your students discover the internet and the library, and then they leave you alone and they learn something, which is rather good. And that's how Harvard and Yale have always worked. And in fact, the best known products of Harvard and Yale, like Bill Gates, are known for the fact that they left before they graduated. So MOOCs are there to create dropouts. So budget for that. It helps if you have a course that you make to create dropouts, because when do people drop out? When they think they know enough, that's all. So I just need to look at the time. How much time have I got? It's on January. I have 5 more minutes. Okay, I can live with 5 more minutes. So even less. Okay, I must go even more quickly. I will now talk at gigabyte speed. If you can listen at terabyte speed, we'll make it. So here, ladies and gentlemen, is the first public launch for my MOOC. It's called a mini open online course. And it's called Dr. Doctor. And if you Google for Johannes Cronje, then ever since the sportsman Hansi died, I'm first. And then on my website, if you just click there at the top, it says my free online doctoral program. Now here's the idea. I'm supervising about 12 doctoral students at the moment. Why do I do that? Because I haven't learned how to say no. And so it's a real nuisance because I keep on having to say the same thing to them all the time. Like, this is where you do like, don't start before you've got mentally loaded, and don't start before you know who the heroes are. But find out what the issues are in the field, and go to a couple of conferences, and then why do I keep on saying it? So now I say to people, go to this MOOC, go to my website, to my free online doctoral program, just read it. So the concept is this. Anybody in the world ever who wants to do a doctorate in e-learning can go to my site and follow the instructions step by step by step. Then all you have to do is find an idiot at any university, anywhere, who would like to supervise you. And then say to the guy, listen, I'll follow Cronje's program, will you supervise me? And it's done. And why am I doing this? It's because nothing that I do costs me money, because I fetch other people's stuff. I use only free stuff, so how dare I ask any money for it? So it's there, it's open. Anybody who wants to, this is the invitation to you. Anybody who wants to do a doctorate, go and do that one and submit it to some university and just get it. So there it is. So to do that, there are a couple of free online open. Are you noticing what I'm saying about open access and open courseware and stuff? Anybody can do it, for goodness sake. You just need to figure it out. And so the one place that you really need is Digo, or there's another one called Delicious, which is a shared website where, and you see there, if I find a really cool website, I just click and I take it to Digo. So anybody who follows me on Digo will get all my sites. But if you click on any of those, you'll know who else has been bookmarking those sites. You can go to that guy and find out which sites he bookmarked. And so you can take this whole route on your own direction. I'm beginning to see there's only one learner, and that's the one who's following the path that he makes for himself through these various things. And our job is just to to put the scaffolding down to make sure that he doesn't go off the rails completely. Then academia.edu is absolutely essential. Look at that, Neil Butcher is right at the top of my academia.edu at the moment. I wonder why. And what academia.edu does, every educator or person who's passionate about education is on academia.edu. It's like Facebook for academics. And so you go there and you find out, hey, I really want to work with Sugata Mitra, but I've got no idea how to get hold of him. Or if you go and find him on there, and then you look and you read all the articles that he posts there and so on. And when you feel confident, you send him an intelligent question. And then he will answer. Send him a dumb question, he won't. So that's how you know whether your questions are intelligent or not. Do they get answers? Then you use Mendeley or Zotero, and that is just a really cool way of organizing your articles, and then you just simply press cite and it goes straight to your Word document and it does the citation for you. So without that, not going to work. And again, it's free. Mendeley has just been bought out by Elsevier, so be careful, it might not be free forever. Zotero belongs to Firefox, and it comes for free with Firefox. And it's a way to keep all your records together. If I have more time, I'll talk to you more about that. And then I've got one more minute, and then there's Google Drive, which is the way in which I supervise all my students. Now they have Google Drive, they make it shareable, all their colleagues add to that document, and I add to the document, and when they're satisfied that they have enough comment, they download it into any other word processing software and tidy it up and submit, and they get a doctorate. It's really very easy. So those are my conclusions and recommendations, and those are more of them. And so here's what I want to end with. Rudyard Kipling said, I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are why and what and how, and where and who. And if you look at those 6 questions, we can put them down there. And if your questions are what is and how does, you're a formalist, and those are the sort of things you do. And those are the sort of tools that you use. If your questions are how does and why is, you're a populist, and you use Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If your questions are why is and how should, you're a functionalist, you use drill and practice, EPSSs, and on-demand training. If you do what is and how should, you're a conventionalist, you use Blackboard tutorials and teaching machines. And so that's very clever, and you can Google that somewhere. I'm sure I said it somewhere before it's been published. What am I going to do next? I'm going to start looking at Learning Activity Management Systems, LAMS. It is free, and it is a way of actually programming the things that people do and the sequence in which they do it. It's called LAMS, Google for it, it's cool. The other thing that I like is this thing called Tin Can. where you can put your experiences into this, and you now populate, you say, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and it's sort of an online portfolio of skills. I don't know much more about them, so that's why I'm just doing it very quickly to tell you the next thing, because what I want to end with is the whole poem, because it is so very cool. I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew, their names are what and why and when and who and where and who. I send them over land and sea, I send them east and west, but after they have worked with me, I give them all the rest. I let them rest from 9 to 5, I'm busy then, as well as breakfast, lunch and tea, so they are hungry men, but different folks have different views. I know a person small. She keeps 10 million serving men who get no rest at all. She sends them abroad her own affairs from the second she opens her eyes. 1 million house, 2 million wares, and 7 million wives. Rudyard Kipling of Victoria. Those are the kids that we are dealing with. They send their serving men abroad on the back of Professor Google with 1 million house, 2 million wares, but 7 million wives. Thank you.